Hello and welcome to the Friday wrap up here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is May 16th, 2025, and we're looking at Bitcoin as always here. To start with, on the weekly, we'll take a look at, Sol, ETH, and SUI as well a little bit later here, as they are the most popular ones that have been requested. And in the future, I might just do an altcoin stream here, as I've gotten a few more requests from some people that I would like to actually give them the information on that they're looking for on the chart here. So in this case, we're going to take a look at Bitcoin. We're going to start on the weekly and define what we would like to see over the weekend for continuation to the upside in the next week, possibilities of throwing in a high and what those conditions would look like. And, we'll drill down to the daily from there. So to start out with the weekly, very clear, we've got, just to review, we've got the nice uptrend, the trend break rather, not an uptrend, but the break of the downtrend rather. So this is just a trend break. And I want to stress that no matter where this high ends up, whether it's here or higher, doesn't matter. At some point, we're going to see a weekly high, and then we look for the trend reversal setup. I know that many of you have heard this over and over and over again, but I don't want anyone to feel like they were surprised when this does actually occur. So just really quick, I know I've been going over this a lot lately, but some people are fairly new to technical analysis and need the reinforcement here. But we have the downtrend, right? We have the trend break. Now, statistically speaking, after a trend break like this, we're looking for the higher low equal low setup, as that is the preferred setup out of something like this. Doesn't matter where higher lows come in, but that is the most probabilistic setup after a trend break on a longer term time frame like this. That doesn't mean that that's going to occur that way, but that's what you have to evaluate. When we do see a high, whether it's here or higher, we look for higher low, equal low structure as the setup or the trend reversal setup. If it was going to be a higher low like this, or an equal low if it were to dip down further, that is the actual trend reversal setup. That doesn't mean that the trend reversal is on, but if we get a higher low or an equal low, that's the setup that you play, and the criteria becomes the last higher high, right, for continuation and setup confirmation. So that is, kind of what we're looking for from here. Or, we are looking for something like this, that this becomes a deviation of this downtrend and resumes the downtrend. So a deviation of trend. Those are the three possibilities from here. Statistically more likely to see the trend reversal setup start to present itself whenever we see a high in, but we are not there yet. We don't have a high in. This has still got just as much of a chance to go higher right now as it does to put in a high. And as it stands right now, the criteria is if the candle closes anything like this on the weekly, especially as a doji, whether it be red or green, and we don't see continuation through the weekend to get above last week's high at 105, basically, then was last week's high really 105? Oh, yeah, it was 105, basically. It's 104 and 997. So if we don't see a close above there, and we do throw an inside candle or an inside bar here, then it's a fairly easy setup. Wherever the low is, for instance, if the low is here at 100,703, then any closes below there would make this a higher high as it relates to this last lower high, right? And then we start to say, okay, can we start to look for that potential trend reversal setup on the weekly time frame, and hunt for that on the dailies and evaluate the dailies, because that's where it becomes really important, is on the dailies as it relates to the weeklies. And that can be either on a swing, so a bigger swing candle, like what we saw down here, that we paint the high, we get a swing, and then we end up with the three candle structure from there. We've had other types of swings that we could go over. Maybe if it does start to present itself, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, right? But in this case, then the criteria for the next week's candle, if it closes anything like this, is close above the 106 here, which is just going to be targeting the highs, which is right where Bitcoin is, and we you'll have to forgive me. I still have a little bit of an issue going on here with my voice, but the weekly is really, really easy. It doesn't get much clearer than this, and that's where we have a big old weekly zone, that 102, 563 to the high there at 109 360. If we see closes above the upper second, and this is going to move up, so it's going to probably be around the upper second's at let's go ahead and look. It's at 109. It's at 108 500 because the candle turned red, but it's essentially right around the all-time high. If price starts to push up to 106 on the daily and start to run the high, it's really 110 to 112, 112 to 115, and then we start looking at that upper third, around that 116, 117 number. But I do think that if we see a close above the upper first, we're going to see expansion. You're probably going to see the upper second end up somewhere around the 110 to 112 region anyway, so that's going to fit with the working theory already. And if we do start to see things fall apart, below the low at 100,700, then we're just looking back to the basis band area as one of the key levels, and that's just above 92, which is a big important daily level. But realistically, it's to the bottom side of the range, 93.5, and we are talking from the weekly perspective. The daily is going to be more detailed when we take a look at it here, but it's essentially 93.5 to the $89,000 area, and the basis is likely going to move above the 93.5 here on the next tick, provided we don't just nuke through it over the weekend or something, which never know, never say never, but does seem unlikely from here right now. That's like the bottom side of the original range, right? And then we start looking down to the highs here, which is, essentially our 86,000 to the bottom side of the range, right around that 89,000. So fairly easy to understand what's going on the weekly. Criteria is close anything like this, even if it's a green doji, but fails to close above 105 essentially, then, we're looking at anywhere where this low is. Any closes next week below this low at 100,700, or if it ends up being lower, before the Sunday close, wherever that is, close below there, and bottom side of this original range is more likely going to be the outcome. Doesn't mean it has to hit it, but is a very likely outcome from there. And anywhere above the 106, as it stands right now, we're running the highs and higher, and there is actually specific criteria we're going to get into on the daily that paints this pretty clearly. And let's check on a few other things for the weekly here, and then we'll wrap the weekly look, and we'll take a look at the daily, and then we'll take a look at a few altcoins, and call it a week. Week in the books, huh? All right, so we have really nice strong momentum to the upside, and we have room 80,574 as the pivot, which is going to substantially increase. Like maybe it's $86,000 after Sunday. Even then, that gives price a very for the weekly gives room for a nice correction from the daily into the weekly, and will likely define the bottom side of the range as the criteria around that, $93.5 to $89,000 as the worst case scenario. You don't want to see that break if you're bullish. And when you see this strong of a signal with the pivot that far away on the low, it does lend itself to strength that can get followed through on the weekly time frame, and of course monitor that on the daily. So we've seen it quite a bit. We had, where people were looking like, nope, it's going to stall at the top of the range here. And then we got a big old doji, and then it was just straight on through, right? So obviously the setup there was like, oh, well, it's because of the election and this and that. Well, of course, yeah, but we had all the signals we wanted when we got the higher low, the trend break, and then the higher low. We already had all the signals that we were going to go to the top of the range, test it, and then very highly likely going to push through. For those that remember that, it was pretty clear, and it's the same kind of setup here, even though it a lot of people go, no, 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 it's not getting through here, it's going down. Um, you have to give it a chance. And the statistical likelihood after the higher low was that if it tests this and doesn't get doesn't get rejected and put in another high and take out that low, then that higher low, then it's game on to the upside. It's going to break out. So be aware of that. That was the higher beta play there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the daily. Still on our local support and resistance zone. This is still a nice uptrend. So there's your trend. Support and resistance, very, very easy. Nothing has changed. We're back in the pause market. Thanks, David. And the big zone here. We're looking for our confluences. So we trend is obviously up. Even swing trend is fine right now. Even though the kind of defining characteristic of this range is one candle with the swing high and swing low, it's fine. It's very, that just makes things easier to define. We'll get into that in just a minute. But in this case, we're in that 101 to 104 range. We got a little bit of a close up and a push towards our next big target overhead, which is the 106 to the all-time high area. And I got so many people going, why aren't you marking the all-time high? Because we swung above it only on one candle, and that candle got pushed all the way to our 101 to 104 range here. So it's very important, and it's a lower term time frame checkpoint for me at that 108 400 or so that we're going to go test essentially 110 to 112. We're going to run the all-time high, likely higher, even if it's just on a swing, or for those of you that like to say wick, it's a wick. So even at minimum. So daily looks fine. Easy ass criteria in this daily. Not just the fact that we're in the middle of this kind of support resistance zone of interest. You can see the upper first is right there at the 1272. That's kind of governing this little consolidation as well, as price kind of clusters around it in terms of closes. In this new pause market here, we have very well defined range. If we start seeing it drop down to the 101 level, just be aware that doji on the low at 100,700, we could see it swung at like 100K, and hit maybe the basis band or something and then pop back up. But if it starts to close under here, if it hasn't already come down to hit this high at 98 to the top side of this consolidation, right around this key point of control area around $96,000, then I'd be looking essentially $95,000 to $98,000. And this area right here is the point of control right around the upper $95,000 to lower $96,000 area in terms of volume. Anywhere below there, very easy. Right back to that weekly higher low and a close at 93.5, where this push up originated from. And we saw the nice consolidation and push up. Look, we got smart money players, and they're accumulating spot for asset under management positions. That's your spot ETFs. You've got other bigger corporations getting involved and starting to buy up through OTC and APs and all kinds of stuff. So, this is kind of a classic accumulation and push up kind of deal right now. At some point we will get a wider correction, whether it comes from here or higher, it doesn't really matter. And that's when we want to pay very close attention. It's kind of like easy mode right now until we see a wider correction. And in this case, we've got nice 3 drives up on this particular move. So the likelihood to go run the highs is still there. You see the upper second right around the all-time high, and then we're starting to get into the 110 to 112 by that upper third, which is right just shy of 112 right there. To the bottom side, you can see the basis band coming in at 99.6. If this candle turns green during the day, this could adjust towards that $100,000 area. Top side of this consolidation before the breakdown, right around that $95,000 to $96,000 area. Anywhere below there, you see, kind of bracketing by that lower first. Pretty easy stuff here. Right around the point of control of this range up here. Anywhere below there, we got to be where 93.5. Anywhere below there, we're looking right into the key level zone at $92,000 to essentially 88.7. You can call it 89 at the weekly higher low structure there. But, between the two, the higher low and the lower high, you just call it, you can just call it 89 to 92 as the key level there. If that's lost, then we're looking down, for swings and possible breakdowns and tests as resistance down to some of the key areas at 80, 85, 86. But, from here, unless, there's some catastrophic, price action or something like that, I'm not expecting anything like that right now. But you never know. So always plan for it. That's why I talk about all of the targets, not just some of the more local targets here. So just a review of that. And just keep in mind that we've had 3 nice drives up in this current trend, and we still do not have any in-trend bearish divergence. Is there bearish divergence from prior trends? Yes. In-trend bearish divergence is the one that you're looking for, though, for possible trend reversal setups or deeper corrections. And so far, we don't have that. So the more likely scenario and how bearish divergence would be formed will be we push up and make another higher high, possibly even run the all-time high, put in a lower high on RSI to get a drive of bearish divergence. So far, we don't have that. We do have momentum divergence, though, which has led to, this consolidation. 103, we're going to call this 103,600 because the candle's red right now. If it turns green, 103,600 is now the local pivot. And I've mentioned this before for momentum. This is a regular Stoke, not a Stoke RSI. We just looked at RSI. I don't need to see RSI. Some people like to look at Stoke RSI, and that's okay. I just don't need an indicator. An indicator in this case, we're looking at close over close price momentum. 103,600 is going to be the pivot for Friday. That's going to change. In fact, that will come down to more local pricing here, maybe even to some of the swings. If Bitcoin just goes sideways and holds in the 101 to 104 kind of zone. And it can bullishly reset in this area, and even within the context of the bullish control zone, which you can play on a regular Stoke because it is measuring close over close price momentum. But there is a little bit of divergence there, but that's what's led, to the look of, what we already saw was another test down to that 101. So no worries there. Yeah, nothing much more to say. I mean, it's pretty chill. I think it's pretty easy to define what the criteria is. We start seeing 101 cracked. Look to that 100,700. Could it save itself at 100K? Yes, anywhere below there if it hasn't already done it. I'm looking 98 to the top side of the consolidation here at 95, kind of bracketing right around that point of control of the range at 96. Anywhere below there, we're looking back to the weekly at 93.5. Anywhere below there, 92 to essentially 88.7 to $89,000 to the upside. We start cracking above, especially the high here from Friday. 104,600. It's fair game. This was kind of a test of the close open up here, but kind of a weak test of that. It's fair game still to go up and test. Kind of get above 105. Definitely I think we're gonna see a test up to the 106 level that got front run up over here, and then make a real push for the all time high and higher. To 110, 112, at least initially, and then start looking above to 112, 115. Above there, you could even say 115 to 117, 18 region, considering the weekly would start to stretch out for volatility metrics. And that's kind of it. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at ETH. We'll start by looking at ETH here. ETH. Oh, we're looking at traditional markets. You know what? That's a damn good move up. This is a V recovery. By the way, this is going to be begging for a correction. And when it corrects in traditional markets, the tears will be real. This This is a nice V recovery, nice gap. I would love to see this thing knock its head and come back down to earth, but you can't fade a massive move up. It's got a lot of room for a correction too at 51.88 for SPY and SPX. This is a very nice recovery. Would I love to see a gap fill? Sure, but don't fade the end. Don't fade the trend till the end of the trend. It's the same thing. When the trend starts to turn, this is a beautiful uptrend. Just wait for it. And it's also broke above some key levels, grabbed the bottom side of the range, came up in mid-range to the highs here. It's a very beautiful move back to the all-time high zone. I would be starting to look for corrections. Maybe if it hasn't done it, in this next week, I'd be looking for it into the end of the month. We have expiries and stuff like that and some other things coming up. So, all right. And positioning for the end of Q2 coming into next month. So nothing wrong with these markets, by the way, even when they correct. And even if they correct really hard, there ain't nothing wrong with it. At least in my estimation. Beautiful downtrend break as well off of that. A little bit nicer even on NASDAQ over here. And then Dow is always lagging a little. It's got a more clearly defined candle structure on a closing for the high there. It's still got a ways to go. Forgive my mess of a chart, but I just happened to click on it. So here we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at ETH. Hey, look at ETH hit our next level that we talked about. And if it throws a doji like this, it's going to be kind of ugly, but it's the same criteria as what we've talked about on Bitcoin. The main level overhead is that 27 essentially to 3K. And I've said this over and over and over again. This is a nasty downtrend, which means that it's got to put in another lower high. Even if it's a lower high than this guy right here, that's fine. Give it a chance to try and dig itself out. Come back to some of these areas down below. If it does start to push above, especially 3K, it'll definitely, be a downtrend break in this case. But that is an ugly ass candle. So if it does close anything like that, closes below 2400, is that's your lower high essentially, and then start looking back to the 23 to 2100. Watch everyone cry in the timeline, and then if it presents an opportunity down further, then the tears will just become a waterfall, which is where opportunity is, right? Because if it does start to show signs, especially show signs of putting in like higher low structure, equal low structure as it relates to the big old dump off down here, which by the way, I would rather see it hold 21 to 23. See if bulls can actually defend that area, because it's such a major pivot point on longer term time frames that I would like to see it. We've got plenty of room for a correction though on ETH. Like 1482 is the pivot. That of course is going to update. It's probably going to be somewhere around 17 to 1800, so somewhere around this purple zone down here that is just a daily level, but it's really easy to define. So again, below 2400 basically it's going to set a high on the weekly, and that if it closes anything like this for this week, it really doesn't matter, but just more like forward looking. If this is the low coming into Sunday, then next week, and we'll talk about this on Monday, 2400 is the one to pay attention to for the number to set the high on the weekly. This will definitely set a swing high on any bearish close, so red candle close. And nothing really matters on closes below 2609 on the weekly for this candle in particular, and even the next. And then it's essentially 2700 to 3K. That's the next big hurdle for Ethereum. So. And then pay attention to 23 to 2100 to the downside. Otherwise, the tears will flow. Let's go ahead and we're gonna just look at macro, and we'll get into maybe the micro for alts soon. Ugly candle on not as ugly in terms of doji, but still an ugly inverted hammer for Solana. And alts are going to be subject to whatever Bitcoin does. So if Bitcoin decides to stall out and correct hard, and then alts are going to get, they're going to get killed with weeklies like this, by the way. But they're still fine. Because they have to dig out of the current downtrending structure. This is a nasty all-time high to lower low structure on Solana. And when I say nasty, don't understand that I'm bullish on all these coins going forward for the long term, but they have to build structure. This actually makes me happy, right? Because even if it throws in a high, we just look to wherever the low is for this weekly, wherever this comes in. If it's here or lower, then we start looking for higher low equal low structure from there, and then this becomes the criteria for taking out. This becomes the criteria for taking out the lower high, because right now the last high to take out on a close is basically an equal high double top with a freaking higher high swing up there. It's crazy, right? So you want to see lower highs, right? And that makes it easier for price to start digging out and creating, trend. In this case, this slammed right into the big weekly zone here, which is essentially right around that 180, which is also a big daily area of interest. And it needs to reverse. I mean, this thing could dump all the way down. In fact, this is a major weekly level as well, right around 125, 126. That's where the lower first is. It could go and retest that. Would love actually to see a retest of that and then have it hold up, get some higher low structure off there, and then it becomes real juicy to start, trading a possible trend reversal setup. So far, watch Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin's able to push through, I would expect, Ethereum to push into the 27 to 3K level. I'd expect, Solana to push into this bigger level between 180 and 210, essentially by the upper first standard deviation there. It's got plenty of room to safely retrace on the weekly at 106 for the pivot. That's going to come up. It's probably going to be around 115 or something. I'm giving it a lot of room there. So maybe it's 115, 120. But that means that if it does put in a high and come back down, then this lower first area somewhere around the mid 120s is going to be very, very important to watch for a reversal setup. Because if it doesn't hold up, then it's back to the lows. And then we evaluate possible equal low structure from there, but odds go down the closer you get to equal lows for a reversal setup. And let's take a look at SUI. SUI, this is a nice weekly trend break. It's a nice monthly setup for a higher low, right? It set it, and it's trying to confirm it by the end of the month above basically 12.65 billion. The danger is this becomes like some sort of macro lower high. But I'm not, it's fine. So 922 mil. So this is, or it's 9 bill, sorry, 9.22 bill. Jeez. Looks fun. Got to give it a chance. Same thing. Higher lows. If it comes down to like 10 bill, it starts to crack below it. It's going to come down and start testing that lower first on the weekly around 7.4 to that 9 bill number. So understand that it's looking as though this wants to set up for a consolidation if it doesn't just get straight up continuation. So, keep that in mind. We'll do a little bit more detailed analysis. Maybe I'll start doing some, just like, hey, here's Ethereum, hey, here's Solana, and, here's SUI or whatever, and then kind of break those out into short, like 5-minute videos or something, and just upload those. You all let me know if that's something that you would like. And then we can, then you can comment about how much you hate my analysis there. No, actually, I really do appreciate all the kind comments. And I'll end this off by saying thank you to David Gockstein, Leslie Moda, Tammy, and the rest of the Gockstein News Network and crew over there for welcoming me to the family as noted by what was the pin post, but will be down in the feed there. I have joined the team over there, so big shout out to them. I'm really excited, and yeah, big stuff coming. I'm hearing. We'll see. We'll see. But I want to thank everybody for the shout out and the love and stuff on those posts and on the videos. I appreciate you supporting me. And the best way to do so is go ahead and like and share this out there if you do like my analysis. So I appreciate you all. You all have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care.